First, a quick thank you to my viewer who pointed out that I apparently have been sitting back further from the camera. I discovered my monitor was on the verge of falling off my desk. So, thanks for that. So, the question is atheism failing the West? And what do we mean by that? Well, obviously, if you want to look at it in terms of how atheism itself is doing, seems to be growing by leaps and bounds, at least in Europe, and gaining ground here. By what I mean by failing is it meeting the objectives that essentially uh, liberalism laid out for it? So, one of the things to understand is as liberalism has moved forward, the general idea, and do recall I completely differentiate between liberalism and progressivism. As far as the liberals go, the idea is to liberate, to free you of impediments for you living a good and happy life. And so, one of the ideas that comes along with liberalism is its approach towards religion. Essentially, we get a two pronged approach. One part is liberalizing the doctrine in such a way where Christianity becomes not judgmental anymore, where it's essentially kind, caring, and supportive of everything you do rather than judging you about things that might be sinful. The other prong, of course, being atheism. And the goal of that was to free people from the structure of religion, feeling bad about doing things, getting in trouble for doing things, I guess potentially freeing up time to do other things. So, how is it doing at this moment? Well, I'm starting to wonder just exactly how well people are dealing with atheism. And I'll throw it back to a thought I was talking about in an earlier video talking about deism. Whereas one of the reasons why deism never really took hold was most of the adherents were intellectuals. And these intellectuals reasoned, saying, well, I can be a moral person without an intervening God, without uh, every word of the text of the Bible being absolute truth. But is it the same for the common man? And even many of the deists who were thinking of spreading this belief system amongst Americans immediately retreated once they saw what happened in the French Revolution, which was, of course, a very anti religious event. And we saw a true plunge in even what we would consider rudimentary Western behavior. I mean, in terms of what happened there. So the question is, are the same arguments that the founding fathers and other intellectuals of that period, the arguments they had against spreading deism to the masses, are they being proved right in terms of atheism being spread to the masses? Now, to a certain extent, it's a variation of the old question of can a person be moral without believing in a judging God? And obviously, we all know people who claim to be adherents to Christianity who aren't any more moral than some of the atheists that they disparage. But we're definitely seeing a huge change come around all of Western culture, and the idea that there are no fundamental truths seems to be causing issue. And is the lack of fundamental truths, is disbelief in anything beyond humanity or more specifically, a human and his life, if there's nothing beyond that, what is that doing to us? One could argue that if one doesn't see anything really beyond themselves, uh, it could be having effect on our long-term decision making. If nature is more important than Western civilization itself, well, then obviously you don't have children, or you have very few. Uh, and this is obviously going to become detrimental to us as the time bomb, population implosion time bomb gets worse. Uh, I would tend to lay this at the feet of atheism. And I think an issue we can see in both the whole, call it a pseudo Gaiist movement, as well as the progressive movement, is it seems that humans have this overwhelming urge to fill the void of theism. If what you grew up with wasn't there, or if what is generally out in society isn't acceptable to you, it would seem that you have a person would have a tendency to want to fill it. And the answer to most atheists' lack of religion does seem to be government intervention, an attempt to make heaven on earth, salvation and redemption through government. And I think what we've been seeing the last several years really calls into question whether we're getting good results of this, or whether perhaps atheists are taking things too far. Uh, for example, I know, mind you, not all atheists think alike, nor do all Christians think alike. But I know many atheists get immediately ruffled when you mention something like the Golden Rule. Well, another video, sorry, plugging myself. Uh, but if the Golden Rule creates a functional society, if you're a person of reason, it shouldn't matter that the most common iteration that we're aware of in the Western world comes from the Bible. And it's almost, it, looking at it, if one were an atheist, uh, there's an old Roman saying that it is right to learn even from our enemy. So if somebody on the other side has a great idea, why not just say, yeah, this is a universal truth? Who cares what its source is? But I think a lot of atheists have this idea that they can just eschew everything that comes out of Christianity, and there's going to be no harm, no foul over it. But I think what we've been seeing in Western civilization is that some element that is Christianity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the religion as a whole, every aspect of its belief or whatever it is, but some aspect of Christianity is critical to keeping the Western world together and moving forward and functioning. Its total absence doesn't seem to be working well. Uh, I don't get the feeling that uh, the various people out there who are liberating themselves from binary sexuality are happy. Uh, they seem angry and disturbed. And I don't mean disturbed in a mentally sort of way. I mean just that it doesn't bring them calmness. It doesn't bring happiness. Uh, and I think to a greater extent, uh, this whole void of theism, looking for government to fill the void, tends to lead towards um, an evangelical view of government rather than saying, "Oh well, what is it that government should be doing?" Uh, which it seems to be rarely the question. It always seems to be uh, what items are there and what is government's role in every single item that exists. Uh, very kind of an attempt to put government in the role of the whole omnipotent, omnipresent sphere, and that there seems to be happiness in this idea. So, if this generates a little bit of discussion, I hope it does, because it's a weird place. And I think one of the things that kind of brought me to this thinking is about 5 years ago when Jordan Peterson started getting into things, and he was getting into his Bible series, which I do recommend. Even if you absolutely, let's say you want nothing to do with religion, listening to Peterson's take on things is not going to make you religious, but it is going to make you understand how the stories uh, tie into Western civilization in ways we don't fully understand. Maybe you understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about. What are we missing by not having it there? And I think because initially Peterson was very lukewarm on the idea of saying, well, does he or does he not believe in a God? And people were kind of getting upset with him. But I think Peterson was literally at the exact same place that a lot of the deists were, where he was looking and saying, yep, something's missing, something's not going right. And it does seem to be Christianity, but he was trying to find a way to distill it, where it's like, is there an element of Christianity that we can bring out without actually embracing all of Christianity to fill this gap in Western civilization to make it functional again? And in his mind, it was exploring the archetypes of the stories in such a way that people could wrap their brains around them and understand Christianity's contribution to Western culture, and then hopefully fill whatever was going on there. I think since then, uh, I think he realizes it may take more than just that. And I don't really know what the full answer is to this whole question. But we're not on a good path right now. I don't think many people feel happy and comfortable. I mean, if you look at previous decades, you can see various bits of turbulence here and there, but generally, once you exited the turbulence, you could feel that life was going okay. And you'd say, well, yeah, things kind of suck for the moment, but probably a few years from now, when this all blows by, we'll get back on the right track again and everything will move forward. Where I think a lot of times people now are just saying, this sucks and it's going to continue to suck and there's nothing we can do about it. So yeah, so I hope, like I said, I generate some comments on here. Uh, is this the fault of atheism that we're in what we are now? If it's not, where does the fault lie? And when I do say atheism, if you're an atheist, I'm not like saying you're to blame. I mean, one can be part of a general movement and not be responsible for what the movement does in any way. So, yeah, if it's not atheism, that's causing the problems we're experiencing. I mean, or if you don't like it being atheism being pointed at, the lack of Christianity being the problem. What is the problem if it's not those? Uh, and if those are part of the problem, is there some kind of element of that Western civilization that we can re embrace in such a way where the majority of us can agree on it and get things moving forward in a more congenial way. Okay. Well, appreciate you sitting in with me tonight. If you like it, like it. If you have a comment on it. I'm very likely to answer it. If it's something in depth, I might even make a video on it. Subscribe, and you think somebody else might find this interesting, please share. All right, hope to see you in a future video.